What's good on my stock market trader and investor homies? In today's video, we're going to be talking about how the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and her far left Democratic colleagues are doing something that could literally crash the stock market. We're talking about the budget bill and the fight in Congress to pass it or not pass it, and the potential for the U.S. government to default on the US dollar. This is absolutely huge for the stock market. If we default on the US dollar, this market is going to fall off of a cliff and it won't be pretty. Even though I do believe we have the potential to see increased volatility next week, this is leading me to a specific swing trade that we're going to be breaking down. I think this swing trade has massive upside potential. We have a buy zone and the risk to reward ratio is very good. We're going to be breaking all that down in today's video. The broker I'm using to trade right now, I use them in every video, that's Webull. Check out the link in the description for Webull after the video if you want to get 2 free stocks valued up to over $2,000 of free money. I have the SPY, the S&P 500 chart on the screen. I like to go through the SPY chart at the beginning of most videos just to talk about market dynamics, provide some market analysis, and see where we're standing in the overall market. We had the big correction 2 weeks ago and volatility looked like it was picking up. We sold off from highs of 454 all the way down under 430. That was a big drop, but last week we recovered nicely, hitting that 429 area. We had support and we got back. We regained about half of the sell-off, a little more than half of the sell-off. But something happened over the weekend that is a huge blow to this stock market. Nancy Pelosi is saying that she may delay the vote in the House for the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. Now, this is different than the budget bill. Remember, we have the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that actually goes to real infrastructure, bridges, roads, that type of thing. And then following that bill, they were expected to vote on the $3.5 trillion budget bill that has a whole lot of gobbledygook in it. But that budget bill is very important, and we'll talk about why that is in just a second and why we may default on the US dollar. But Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, said Sunday that she may not bring the $1 trillion infrastructure bill to the House floor on Monday as previously planned, saying she'd rather wait to ensure it has all the votes needed. But that's just a bunch of bullshit. We know that's bullshit because the Democrats have said in the past that if it looks like that $3.5 trillion budget bill is not going to get passed, they're going to slow roll the real infrastructure bill. They're going to delay that and not pass that real infrastructure bill. So they're basically threatening to squash the infrastructure bill if everyone isn't on board of the second follow-up $3 trillion budget bill. Pelosi went on to say that she would never bring a bill to the floor that doesn't have the votes. This was an interview with ABC, George Stephanopoulos. She says, you cannot choose the date. You have to go when you have the votes in a reasonable time, and we will. Pelosi had said on Friday that she planned to bring the bill up for vote on Monday. With the budget reconciliation bill, we have debt ceiling increases proposed inside the bill. That is why this bill is so important. We've reached our limit of debt that the U.S. economy, the U.S. government can take on. To pay the debt, to keep generating money to spend, the government takes on debt. All governments do this. And to do this, they issue bonds, which are basically an IOU to pay back the debt at a later time. But when you reach the limit of the debt, it needs to be raised in order to generate more revenue and pay that original debt back. So it's basically like a big Ponzi scheme, but in order for the Ponzi scheme to continue going, you have to raise that debt ceiling. If that debt ceiling isn't raised, the US government could default on its debt, making the US dollar worthless. Basically, it would just be complete chaos out there. They would have to just pay cash for everything, which we don't have a lot of, or the government doesn't have enough cash to continue funding everything that they need to fund, and stuff would just start falling apart. They would raise taxes probably immediately. Maybe we have to raise interest rates faster than expected, and it would just be a terrible, terrible thing for the economy. So this is very important. If you have one penny invested in the stock market, you got to be paying close attention to this next week, because it is going to impact the stock market. If they cannot come to a deal, the government shuts down, the debt ceiling date goes past without raising the debt ceiling, we're talking about a financial crisis. Here's the big issue. Let's take a look what's inside the bill, and it better tells us why there's going to be this big battle. We have $726 billion for the Health, Labor, Education, Pensions Committee, with expansive instructions to address some of Democrats' top priorities, such as universal pre-K, child care for working families, tuition-free community college, funding for historically black colleges and universities, and Pell Grants for higher education. We got $107 billion for the Judiciary Committee, address lawful permanent status for qualified immigrants. So basically, I think this is going to be looking at DACA and trying to get some type of legal immigration status for those illegal immigrants who are already here. And then we have $135 billion for agriculture, nutrition, and forestry, basically to address forest fires, reduce carbon emissions, and drought concerns. Then we have $332 billion for the Banking Committee. This is going to address public housing, the Housing Trust Fund, housing affordability, and equity in community land trusts. $198 billion for energy and natural resources, basically going to clean energy development. So some of it sounds okay, some of it sounds like bullshit, but it's not going to get passed. Number one, no Republican, I don't think right now anyways, is going to vote for this bill. Number two, you have some Democrats in the Senate who aren't going to vote for this bill. You have Kirsten Sinema. You have Joe Manchin. So in my opinion, I don't think this bill gets passed. And they can negotiate, come to a bipartisan agreement to get the bill passed, but we're so divided right now. Nancy Pelosi has already stuck her neck out on this. She has already said that if this bill, this $3.5 trillion bill does not get passed, then the real infrastructure bill will not get passed. So she's already put the line in the sand, said she's not going to cross it. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I think we could be heading for that government shutdown. And traditionally, a government shutdown doesn't really mean that much. But with the debt ceiling where it is, it does mean something this time. And it could be catastrophic for the market. So what do? Do we sell everything? Well, I'm a little bit nervous with my current holdings, but I'm going to be holding strong through this because we got to hold strong with our long-term investments. If you try to pick the market with your long-term investments, in my opinion, you're going to lose more times than you pick that top. So you got to hold strong. If it dips, we buy in the stocks that we like at better deals. The swing trade I'm looking at for next week is on ticker JNUG. This is the 2X Junior Gold Miners Bull ETF. Now, it doesn't track gold exactly. If gold moves $1, this isn't going to move exactly $1, but it does track gold. And I think with all this chaos going on in the government, with the debt ceiling, with the economy, we're going to see gold start to uptick. So I'm looking at buying this JNUG as a swing trade and using option contracts to do so. Now, if you have a big giant account, or if I had a big giant account, I probably would just buy the ETF straight up. But you got a smaller account, I know some of you guys do. I like to throw both options out there. So personally, I'll probably stay away from the options and just buy the underlying stock. But if I had a smaller account, I would be looking at the options contract. I never like buying the week of options. The time decay is just too much. If you're off, you can be right on the trade and off by a couple days and still lose money, and that's just a shitty feeling. So I'll probably go a couple weeks out, probably go to these October monthly contracts and look at these $55 call options. So we got calls on the left side of the screen. I'm probably looking at the money. Right now, these $55 calls are trading for $3.30. That's what I'm going to be looking to buy next week. Looking for gold to push and bring JNUG up with it. Back here on the daily chart, here is my plan for this trade. We're currently trading around 55 like we talked about. My stop loss is probably going to be under that $50 area. Those key areas like big whole numbers like $50, they tend to act as support. So if we get a daily close under $50, I'll probably end up having to stop out of the trade. But we'll be looking for this thing to break back up over 60, and those options contracts will pay off nicely. It is a little bit of a more risky trade if you go the options route than just buying the stock straight up. But there's also more upside with the call options there as well. That's going to wrap up the video. There's going to be a lot of drama going on in the political world next week and in the stock market. We're seeing that volatility tick up, so be careful out there. But let's use that volatility to get paid. I love all of you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until next time, deuces.